Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Paul. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello and welcome to Wolves Fancast. My name is Matt. I'm joined by Eddie and Tom, and we have the unenviable job of bringing you the post-match reaction to the shellacking on behalf of Chelsea at Wolves this afternoon. Gents, how are we? Eddie, Tom, you well?
No. Wow, I'm all right. I was all right. I was full of optimism as I was walking to the ground. Here we go. Let's have it. And now I feel like a deflated balloon.
Oh dear. Eddie, you were saying off air that it was not only a pricey day for you, but a long day as well.
Well, I live in Bristol, Matt, and I'm from the southwest, but been a Wolves fan all my life. And yes, I mean, 4 tickets in the Billy Wright. My dad's a senior; he's 65 plus. I got a 14 under 14, but still 200 quid plus petrol plus lunch. You know, it's a 300 quid day out, 10 hours of your day, and you're just feeling completely drained. And it's my daughter's second game, and I have to say to her, you know, Henrietta, that you got to get used to that. That's what it's like being a Wolves fan.
Exactly. And what better way to top that off by talking about it again, reliving like PTSD for another hour. But the people, you out there, we need your help. If you get in touch with us on the live stream, we want to get through as many of your comments as possible. We couldn't do this without the Sport Social Podcast Network and the FC Quiz app as well. So thank you very much to them. So get in touch with us in the chat. We'll go through some of your comments. The Milkman, who always delivers, already in saying that Ryan Aït-Nouri can never play left back for Wolves again. That's a statement straight off the bat. I don't know what he's done already, but Sean Crowe already Ran needs to be moved further up the pitch. Well, we'll talk about that a little later on. But let's get started with, first and foremost, looking at the lineup prior to the game. All excited to kind of see what was going to happen. You'd have had good odds if you could have predicted the Chelsea lineup, I think, with their plethora of talent on show. But Tom, Rodrigo out, Cunha in. What did you think of the lineup when you saw it? And firstly, were you deflated looking at another, or what was on paper, 4 at the back?
Yeah, I mean, Cunha coming in, I can totally understand that. Could be probably our best player. Thought Rodrigo Gomez probably been a little bit harsh because instantly, to my mind, I kind of think, well, can you almost have him, play Rodriguez and get Hwang out the team? Is my instant reaction when I see it. And after Hwang's performance as well, I mean, if I was Rodrigo Gomez sitting on the bench, I'd probably be thinking, my word, what do I have to do? 4 at the back for me. I mean, we've tried how many times? It sounds like a stuck record. I'll probably go back all the times on this channel. Nuno got us into the 5 at the back, and I can totally understand why we'd want to try to go to 4 at the back. But numerous managers have tried it. Gary O'Neill tried it previously and then switched back to a 5 at the back. And it seemed to be working well. Arguably, yeah, you get another player up the pitch, but what you're sacrificing and what you're giving up and the control and what the players are used to, it just doesn't seem to be worth it. And I said at the initial start, if you're going to go 4 at the back, if you've got Totti Gomez and Ryan Aït-Nouri on the left-hand side of the pitch in the Premier League, you are asking for trouble. I think you're asking for trouble in the Championship, if I'm honest, with those on the left-hand side playing 4 at the back. It sounds harsh because you keep saying Ryan Aït-Nouri. He's actually a ridiculously good footballer, and I feel a little bit sorry for him. It almost feels like he needs to be in a number 10 position. But when I see the team sheet, it's instantly you think, as a Wolves fan, cool, we could be exposed there. And the amount of times that Ryan Aït-Nouri today was backpedaling, and Doherty can stand them up. You don't get anything really going forward, but he can defend. So that made me nervous, and then it kind of came to fruition, right?
Yeah. Eddie, from your point of view, looking at the substitutes bench, Dawson back, within the fold, match fit, ready to play. With the absence now of Kilman and a leader and a senior pro, and then this back centre-back pairing with 0 game experience together, really. Mosquera with no Premier League experience. Naivety, I don't know. Recipe for disaster, maybe. Was your thoughts along the line of we should have started with a 5 and had experience in there, looking at the ridiculous Chelsea individuals that they have in attack?
Well, I think Gary, he wants to. This is his first full season at the club. He wants to stamp his identity on the team. We've had a pre-season where we've looked good, and we've looked good before at the back against some good teams, other than obviously the last friendly at Molineux. And it's relatively redundant to say discuss Nuno's 4 at the back, only because that was a completely different team, completely different 11, a completely different squad. There's not any players other than Matt Doherty that are still in the team from those days. So you can't, you have to. I think we have to back Gary O'Neill. I think we could admit, obviously, today was a disaster, and Gary O'Neill takes a lot of responsibility. But it is only game 2. I like Totti Gomez. I like Yersa Mosquera. I think Mosquera is one of our best players against Arsenal in the opener of the season. But they obviously both had terrible games today. Would I like to see Dawson come in? I think I would. And I know we'll discuss Burnley and we'll discuss the Forest game going forward. But for me, it would be good to see Dawson coming in just to be a bit of a cool head, a bit more experience, and just dealing a bit better with those like high balls, lofted balls through. But I don't think we can pin it all on the back 4 today, or certainly the centre back pairing, because there's more about the space and how Chelsea opens up in the second half. But there's failings there as well.
We've got a few graphics to go through a little later on when we go into the second half horror show that was. There's a great question in the... Well, it's not a question, it's a statement, but I want to turn it to a question to you, Tom, before we then talk about the rest of the lineup. Still with this back 4 is worse than the Semedo, Collins, Kilman, Ait-Nouri one that had us. I don't know what DFL means. I'm going to assume it's dead fucking last. I'm not sure. At Christmas, but rate that back 4 against the back 4 today, Tom, in the heat of battle and the heat of the passion of where you are today. Which back 4 are you picking if you can?
I tend to agree. The only thing that instantly, where's my head at? Well, that's a good shout. I'm still with I think, Ed just said previously, like the new note's redundant and he can put his own stamp on it, which I hear. But with that back 4, he must think that those back 4 are capable, like that back 4 were, of defending as a back 4. Now, I haven't seen any evidence to suggest that they can do that. If you want to put your own stamp on it and you've got a transfer budget to allow you to buy players to do that, I understand. Arsenal are going down the 3 huge centre-halves, very Pep Guardiola, Man City-esque, those big 3 centre-halves, if we can keep the ball and can control it like that. Looking at that back 4, Collins and Kilman, for all the, I suppose, the negatives, that they're not that good on the balls, but arguably at least they can defend. Mosquera, to be fair, we might be being a little bit harsh, because I thought against Arsenal, Mosquera was putting a good shift, and I thought he was up against them, and he didn't get bullied by Havertz, and he was really laying into them. But I think there was that many goals today. I don't know which number goal it was, but maybe was it the second goal with the ball over the top that Palmer ended up putting in the back of the net? That is criminal defending. That's rule number 1. Don't let the ball bounce and get rid. So which one's better? I think they're both poor. But Gary O'Neill obviously thinks as a club that's good enough to provide the base to attack. I've said it time and time again. In the Premiership, you have to be able to shut up shop. Rule number 1. You can have 1 or 2 good players up front. If you can keep a Premiership team from scoring just 1 goal a game consistently against the better teams, yes, you might concede 2. You're always in for a chance. Teams that do okay from kind of the relegation to mid-table, they can defend. If you can't defend, you're in trouble. And if you said Totti Gomez, Yersa Mosquera, and you made a great point, Matt. Mosquera looked great, but again, no Premier League experience. Ed made a good point. Where's the leadership? Totti Gomez always, he's done some good games, but he's a bit shaky and he's got an error in him. Ait-Nouri isn't an out-and-out left-back. So, again, you just kind of sounds like we're saying the same point, right? But that's not the basis for your defence, for my opinion, a good enough defence that we need. Which if I was Lamina and Gomez, then makes me scared to start playing intricate passes through passes. So I'm thinking, if we lose the ball, they're straight in behind and we're absolutely stuffed.
I mean, the milkman has curdled already here. Ward, Berra, Stearman and Foley was better in a back four. I'm here with the milk puns all afternoon. How dare he? But Eddie, from your point of view, what's happened to Santiago Bueno? Where does he fit in here? You know, he was in the squad there, but he doesn't seem to be fancied. Will probably feature against Burnley, but he's not again in the lineup. Doesn't get any minutes. Where does he fit into this? Does he fit into these plans? Does Gary O'Neill trust him? Is this the kind of the last point on the lineup?
Well, it's interesting, isn't it? Because we're seeing Gary O'Neill as head coach, and but obviously he's not. I mean, Tom, you were talking about Gary O'Neill thinking this obviously back four is his best back four, and he's decided this is good enough for the Premier League. And I guess my counter to that point would be, has he decided? He gave his interview after the game today, and he made comments about the transfer window, and he seemed a little bit hamstrung. And I know he was talking about kind of breaking even. That was put to him, and he didn't seem that happy. It was my takeaway from that situation. So I think he's certainly doing the best he can with the players he's got available. But then, you look at Santi Bueno, and obviously a decision's been made. I mean, there's lots of rumours about him going out on loan. The decision's been made that maybe he's not good enough, or Gary O'Neill or whoever, Hobbs, has seen him in the summer and decided. But then, last season, he was one of our better players, and then we're thinking, this Dara, who's gone to Ipswich from Burnley, that we didn't want to pay 50 million for. You're bringing him in, but you're letting Santiago Bueno go. Does that make sense? When is that an improvement on what we already have? So I'd like to see Bueno stay. I'd like to see him fight for his place, and we've got obviously the Burnley game coming up. We've got room for this experimentation. If I was Gary O'Neill, I'd stick with 4 at the back against Burnley. I'd change the personnel, and I'd see how Santi Bueno and Dawson would do in the back 4, just for a complete comparison. Obviously not against as good an opponent, but we need to see the players we have, how they can do in this system.
Yeah, no, I agree with you completely. Well, before many of us even got a chance to take our seats and get comfortable, Wolves were up against it straight away with Jackson with the goal here from a corner, whipped in towards a back post, and easy as you like, Wolves are shell shocked, and you can see from the still image, Jose Sarr not really anywhere near the ball. There are 2 players around him that could have potentially have got a block in. However, Wolves were 1-0 down, and Tom, when you concede so early on, all game plans go out the window. What were your immediate thoughts? We've been behind so many times, the first goal conceded in games where we've had to huff and puff to get back in. With a job like this already on, it must have felt like curtains 2 minutes in.
To a degree, but almost part of me was thinking, okay, right, how will Chelsea cope? Because let's be clear, we're praising their individual talent collectively as a team. They've been a bit of a circus. And they've been absolutely all over the place. So what would they be like to hold that lead away from home? Because they're not used to it. Lots of changes, so many players in their dressing room. So I thought instinctively, and it kind of played out like that in the first half in a way. I thought, right, will they get nervous now? Will they sit back? But you're totally right, mate. As soon as you concede straight away, you are, mentally on the back foot. I think what was most concerning about that was just how naive and pathetic, for want of a better word, the goal was, because it was just a straightforward clip the ball to the near post, flick it over. I mean, that graphic there, there's 6 or 7 Wolves players. There's just Jackson all on his own, so it's not exactly like there's 5, there's like four, 5 of them there, and they're all kind of stood in a line, all looking, and he's just headed the ball in at the back post. Now, you haven't got like a mystic ball where you can kind of find out exactly where the ball's going to go. But rule number 1, defend your near post, defend your far post, even if it's zonal marking. So it was a very, very cheap goal to concede, and as it turned out, it gave them a bit of confidence and kind of got their sails up.
Yeah. Speaking of mystic forces, Ed has joined us on the podcast. He chips in at the back post to join us this evening. Ed, welcome this evening, mate. What was your take at 1-0 down within 2 minutes? It was, a proper kick in the teeth. The game plan goes out the window. And how naive were we to concede that goal as it was?
Yeah. Well, I think Tom's hit the nail on the head there. I think with the naivety of it all. I think I jokingly said to my lad that there's a long way to go now. There's a long game ahead of us. At least we've conceded now, trying to silver lining kind of thing. But we'd watched him during warm-up, our first time having season tickets in a long while for me and first time for him. And Jackson had missed absolutely bloody everything. Left foot, right foot, whatever it was, he was missing everything. And I just thought, he's khakis. That's literally what I thought. And he's there at the back post to just nod one in. It was infuriating, but I thought at that point, I still wasn't overly convinced about Chelsea. I'm still not. I think we'll get on to that. But it was a kick in the teeth. But my genuine reaction at that point was, well, there's 80 odd minutes left to go, and who knows?
Yeah, I think the issue lies in it. It's a tale as old as time. It feels like we'll concede the first goal. We'll do everything in our power to get to an equaliser or try and get a winner. But the damage is already half done. You're already starting in a deficit, and therein lies the problem. But Wolves did take a hold of the game, and it, for their credit, didn't seem like they were going to rest on that 1-0 and did try to get forward. And Cunha opened up the scoring for Wolves, made it 1-1. Interesting ball. It just comes across to him, cool as you like, able to just slot it home. And this highlighted to me that Chelsea were equally as shambolic at the back as Wolves in this game. It was two really poor defences in the first half. Eddie, from your point of view, game on, it looked like Wolves were in the ascendancy.
Yeah, no, 100%, mate. I mean, I was just to go very briefly back to the first goal. It's actually a flick on from Cunha, from the replay that I saw, and that led to Nicholas Jackson's goal at the back post. And I mean, I play Sunday League over 35s, and we put a player on the back post, we put a player on the front post. Simple as that. And if there was someone there, we've got a set piece coach now. Could we not? Is that not a basic thing? Have we moved past that in the Premier League? Maybe we have. But it was brilliant how we came back into it. Like you say, I was barely just sitting down for that first Chelsea goal. Couldn't believe it, and it felt like a real sucker punch because it was a combination of luck. Cunha obviously flicked the ball on, and then obviously poor defending. But yeah, we were right up for it. Great run from Aït-Nouri to get to the position he was, beat a couple of men, cool pass across the box. And Cunha's finish actually was dead at Sanchez, but Sanchez went early, dropped low, and the ball just went over Sanchez into the middle of the goal. I didn't think Sanchez had a particularly good game, and possibly we should have tested him a bit more. But yeah, it was brilliant to see us get back into it in such a fashion.
Yeah, it was a really cool as you like finish, and we'll get on to Aït-Nouri's involvement for Wolves' second later on. I mean, we already thought at one point that Cunha had netted an equaliser, only for it to be cut short for offside. Tom, VAR and semi-automated offsides, it didn't really have that much of an impact. They showed the replay on the screen, or at least a still on the screen of what we could see. That's got to be better for the fans inside the stadium to at least not have this guessing game of kind of what's going on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, those, I suppose, that know me well know my opinion on VAR and what it does to the fans that are paying the money, and even watching it at home. Like, it's just so boring. So definitely, anything that we can do to speed it up as quicker. It felt, ultimately you do want to get to the right decision. So the semi-automated, I'm all for the semi-automated, get to the decision quicker. Let's move on. There was one later in the game, mate, that was a little bit slower. That took the time for them to make the decision on. Not too sure why, because it looked offside, just watching it live. But nevertheless, absolutely. I mean, VAR is here to stay, isn't it? We've spoken about it, so many times. And look how hard done to we were last season. I think today's debacle, we cannot hold anything against VAR. It's the correct decision. Came to it quick, which is nice when you go into the stadium and actually understand what's going on, because it happens quick because you're there. Right, we love football because it's free flowing, it's fast paced, and it's entertaining. Anything that takes away from that can do one. So all for the positive for me, mate.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly there. However, let's talk controversy. I don't think many are talking about this controversy-wise because VAR couldn't have intervened. If Stu is listening along, I'm sure he will find the IFAB rule book for this and tell us exactly why. But Parma makes it 2-1 to Chelsea. And BN Sports tweeted out, the ball's rolling. Strictly speaking, it should be disallowed. Richard Key's account. The ball's rolling when Sanchez took the goal kick for Chelsea's second goal. So by the letters of the law, a goal shouldn't count. And I don't want to be that one. I think we'd have got battered regardless, to be honest, come the end of the game. The chance is there, but disappointing. But Ed, let's forget the ball roll for a second. It was just another case where Wolves just, I don't want to use the word fell asleep because I think that implies that they are like negligible, but I think they just didn't know where they were positionally. I don't think they understood where their positions should be, and just to allow then that ball to just trickle over the top, cool as you like, finish from Parma. I want to take that away. Joe, they saw is left just wanting, looking over at the ball going in, but naivety or negligence, Ed, from you for that second goal?
I mean, the cop answer is it's a little bit from column A, a little bit from column B, isn't it? I think, but that it was just that's a shambles, isn't it? To not and have. I think Eddie's just brought up the point that we've got a set piece coach. We should know where we are on the transition if the ball's going to be delivered that quickly. It's a goal kick. It's a set piece. We should be where we need to be. And I didn't notice because I didn't notice whether the ball's rolling or not, or the fact we had literally no one at the back until the guy behind me screamed it just before Sanchez took the kick. He just went, there's no defenders. There's no defenders. And he just started absolutely bawling for people to get back. And then you look up and you realise, oh, bloody hell, he's right. And by that point, Cole Palmer's in on goal. It was, there's no getting away from that is poor from absolutely everyone involved. That can't be. I think Eddie talked about his over 35s league. That wouldn't be acceptable at a five-a-side on a Monday morning, a Monday afternoon. You know what I mean? After work, it's pathetic and it shouldn't be where our defending is right now. And it's not their raw. It's not their new defenders. That is basics. That is basics from a set piece. It's. That's the goal that's annoyed me the most, to be honest, of today.
Well, you've got a lot to choose from, but I can understand that. I think it's the position in where the narrative of the game was, kind of where we were on the ascendancy, and then conceding after it felt like we were in the driver's seat, and then to concede a goal like that felt really, really sloppy. But moving on, the second half was so full of action. There's not a lot of time to stick on one moment, but Wolves get themselves back in now. Eddie, you mentioned about a set piece coach and a set piece specialist, let's say. It was actually a really well-worked goal and something kind of out of the ordinary here that Ryan Aït-Nouri was involved with. Obviously, Strand Larsen opens up his scoring account in the Premier League for Wolves as well. Talk us through the goal and talk us how you felt, what this meant, seeing it was on the stroke of half-time and where we were with the flow of the game.
Well, like you say, the second Chelsea goal was a proper sucker punch. I mean, in my opinion, Dias Mosquera should have dealt with it. He had a chance to get a foot on it before it bounced up for Jackson to head it onto Palmer, and obviously Sarr was out of position. And that was like you say, that was on. When did that go in? 45 minutes. You're thinking, right, we're going into half time. We're going into half time 2-1 down. We don't deserve to be. And then we had that free kick, and we'd already had a free kick about 10 minutes prior, and Cunha had a shot in a very similar position, where Cunha and Aït-Nouri stood over the ball. Cunha had a shot straight at Sanchez. It was very poor. And then we have this chance again, and obviously they went different, and Aït-Nouri whipped it in. Totti Gomez drifted to the back post position, edge of the 6-yard box, headed it across, and then Strand Larsen gets a big boot on it and slots it past Sanchez. And it was very interesting. It was exactly the same thing we did in the second half of the disallowed goal, where Totti got in at the back post at the edge of the 6-yard box, knocked it back, and for that one, Lemina volleyed it in, but sadly Totti was just offside. But that, it seems like a really good route. If we can nail set pieces like that, it's going to be a really good output for goals going forward, because we'll get those free kicks.
So it's a question I want to ask you guys, obviously, on the show, but a question I want to ask everybody listening at home, and I'll try and get as many of the answers in. So we'll go round the three of you first and try and get some of the listener questions in before we have a short break. But what are your halftime thoughts? Forget what happened. try and piece it out of your mind. It never happened. It never existed. At half time, what were your thoughts? What needed to change? What was the outlook for the rest of the game? Tom, I'll start with you.
I thought Chelsea are here for the taking. I thought they were wide open at the back. So I'm at half time, chilling in the concourse. I thought if we can just shut up shop, easier said than done. I understand that these are good attacking players. But if we can just solidify and not do silly errors at the back, keep it tight with what we've got going forward, Chelsea looked all over the place. So I genuinely thought we could snatch this 3-2, 3-2, even 4-3 or something like that. I thought it was here. How wrong I was.
Absolutely. Ed, from your point of view, where were you at half time with what you'd seen and what you expected in the second half?
Yeah, completely with Tom. I thought Chelsea were awful. I thought they were there for the taking, and I thought that, we had some naivety at the back, granted, but so did they. I genuinely thought the match was not only in the balance, I think it was just about tipping in our favour. I was, ready for it. We popped, had a week, came back, had some snacks, and was genuinely looking forward to the second half, thinking that we were going to go on and get a point at the very least. I was more confident of a win than anything else.
Yeah, I mean, having a wee and snacks, you're definitely not in the Steve Bull upper, I can tell you that. You haven't got time for both of those. Eddie, just before we come to you, Richard Griffiths could have been 3-2 up after hitting the bar in the first half. Positive half-time chats amongst the Molineux faithful. Were you quite as upbeat at that point? I suppose scoring so close to the end of the half, I think everybody probably was quite upbeat, if not just the adrenaline pumping.
Yeah, I was feeling good. We played some great attacking football, like Rich says. We hit the bar. I thought Yerson Mosquera glanced the post with a header as well from a corner early on in the game, and we had a disallowed goal. So we looked really good value to be 2-2. If anything, we should have gone into the break ahead. Both Chelsea goals, one felt slightly lucky to me. One again was a bit poor defending. Should have dealt with it, but they weren't good goals. Where we scored more kind of goals that were more free flowing. That were created just without any sort of fortune or an element of luck, and we were playing such good attacking football, whereas Fofana, Caicedo, Fernandes, there was a lot of loose balls from Chelsea in the middle of the park. They couldn't seem to play out the back well. They couldn't seem to play it around in the midfield, and we Lamina and Gomez were hassling, Bellegarde was hassling. We were winning the ball, we were pushing forward. We looked like we had their number. We looked like the game was ours to taking. We were going to push on and win it. That's the way I felt.
Yeah, I agree. I think that will echo a lot of the people's feelings in the stadium and at home, however you found a way to watch the game. Just before we go for a very short half-time break, just want to highlight a couple of things. We've got the FC Quiz app where you can take on quizzes, wonderful Wolves related, and we've also got the Fancast T-Mill store as well with some really interesting and unique designs. So get your Wolves Fancast fix on the store there as well. In the second half, then, we're going to discuss, I'm afraid, for every bit of yin, there has to be yang. We have to talk about the negatives of the second half. We're going to talk about Neto. We're going to talk about positioning of the team. We're going to talk about Gary O'Neill's impact and kind of his how much he was to blame for that performance. We're also going to talk about Burnley as well in the Cup. So there'll be a very, very short break and we'll be back to it. Welcome back to Wolves Fancast second half showing now, where unfortunately we need to talk about some of the negatives. Firstly, I want to thank the Sports Social Podcast Network and FC Quiz for their continued support with the channel. Really do appreciate it. And for everybody watching along at home, listening along via the different live platforms, get your reactions in, get your statements, questions, whatever you want to do. We'll get as many as we can on the screen. Leroy Macturian thought it fell apart when we narrowed our defensive shape. Defenders looked confused. Need to stretch it a little so the wingers didn't have so much space to play in. And Aït-Nouri cannot defend as well as he attacks. Well, we'll get onto that very, very shortly. Looking at some of the stills we have here. So, as my notes state, a hat-trick trick, Madueke I don't. If you're not on social media, Ed, I'm sure you'd have seen this in some capacity. You're like the Scarlet Pimpernel. You cannot be found online. However, Madueke had put on that he wanted to apologise for an offensive tweet that he put on earlier today on his burner account, or at least he thought, where he said everything about this place is shit. And just because you're right doesn't mean you need to put it online. No, I'm sure Wolverhampton is a nice town, and I'm sorry, it's a city. You troglodyte. However, he was the hat-trick hero for Chelsea, and he really took the bull by the horns, especially in the second half. Talk through it, Tom. Where did it go wrong for Wolves? What happened to start this really quick decline in that second half, where out of nowhere, all of the goodwill and all of the hard work went to pot?
Difference in the team talks. It has to be. Because we were in the game, what we just said about the positivity going into from the first half into the second, I think one of the glaring things that we had a problem with, and when you say he's a great footballer, right, but was in our left back position, every time Madueke, or however you pronounce it, was going at Aït-Nouri, he was backpedaling. The amount of times he was panicking and backpedaling, and he got in a couple of times, got his shots off. So I think at half-time, just as simple as Chelsea just realised that they're exposed, get the ball out there, get Palmer less central, get him going over to Chelsea's right, so that Aït-Nouri's left, and just keep feeding the ball in. It almost felt like they were drawing Aït-Nouri into a trap, almost saying, come on, have the ball, come forward. And in their transition, as soon as they got the ball, Madueke was buff, he was gone. Palmer, buff, he was gone. They were just getting the ball, and just literally time and time again, the gap was just absolutely huge. So what started the decline? I think that just the difference in our weakness first half, and then just exploited it massively. I think, as we said, Chelsea were there for the taking today. To be there for the taking, we had to, number one, just shut up shop. Even if it looks a little bit boring, they've still got some phenomenal players going forward. If you can just stop them, nullify them, kill the game a little bit, you've got a chance. If you play Barcelona-esque, free-flowing, expansive football, your left backs over the halfway line, and pretty much playing how Arsenal and Man City are playing, and we don't have those level of players, you're asking for serious trouble. So I think it was just a simple change from them, be quicker in transition and get the ball and get Madueke attacking Brian Aït-Nouri as much as he can. What happens? He goes and gets a hat-trick. So it seems so simple and so easy to say. It must be more complicated than what it seems. But watching it in the stands, it seems as basic and as simple as that, which equally makes it as baffling.
Well, you make a great point there, and I want to get this graphic up for Eddie. Listen, you were the star of Wolves Fancast's incredible win in pre-season. So I need, there's only one man that can explain this, and this is you, Eddie, here. Looking at Aït-Nouri's positioning and looking at Madueke's positioning on the field of play, and Palmer especially as well, looking at where kind of he was within the team. When you look at that trap that Tom mentions, it kind of seems exactly that. It kind of seems it was set up for that. You look at the positioning between Toti Gomez and Aït-Nouri, there's acres of space in between them that is exploited as an average across the game there. That has to be a recipe for disaster. Now, we're going to get on to Gary O'Neill and his part to play in this, but that has to have been Maresca being the more tactically astute. Eddie, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a few things to unpick there, and thanks for the shout out for the Fancast versus Upload United game at Molineux. That was brilliant. Sadly, I think my ghosting in behind wasn't quite as good as Madueke's, but I appreciate the comment anyway. There's a lot to unpack there, isn't there? Obviously, Maresca at half time, they were analysing the game, and they realised that Aït-Nouri was pushing forward. There was going to be this huge gap. Was this something that Gary O'Neill told him to do? That's the question I would have. Is this something he was more doing off his own bat? We've got a four at the back. You play a four at the back, a traditional four at the back. You don't expect your fullbacks to go bombing forward. And with Aït-Nouri shooting forward with that huge chasm of space being left with Toti Gomez, who already had not had a particularly good game, but didn't have a particularly good first game, so he was already feeling a bit shaky. We were going to be in for trouble. And when Aït-Nouri was there, it wasn't much better than having him not there at all. You know, imagine what it would have been like if João Gomez, for some reason, was filling in at left back. What would he have done with Madueke's bearing on down and goal? He'd have got in there. He'd have got in there. He'd have got his foot. He'd have challenged the ball. Aït-Nouri just seemed, criminally indecisive with his arms behind his back. Give him room, play him, let him come. And Madueke just said, okay, I'll just put it to the right and fire it low. I'll just put it to the right, fire it low, put it to the left, fire it low. Jose Sarr, obviously we'll talk about him, but, I don't remember him making a save today. He could have done a bit better. But we're just going to let players get to the edge of our area or in our 6-yard box and just fire a low shot at the goalkeeper. We're going to be in for a heap of trouble. So, yeah, there's a lot that went wrong there. A lot we can put at Aït-Nouri's door, but he's obviously got a role and he's been told to do something. Was he following those instructions? If he was, then that's Gary O'Neill at fault.
Ed, from your point of view, then, I'm not asking you to be the spin doctor for Aït-Nouri, but is there, are there other players that are should have been providing support? You look at the average team positions there, and it's clearly, as an average, favoured to the right-hand side. This shows not necessarily in attack and defence all at once, but there's a lot of exposed space on that left-hand side that Wolves are being exploited on. But you look at Chelsea's average position, it's a lot more neutral, it's a lot more structured. Where does Aït-Nouri fit into this for you as the chief person to blame here for these kind of defensive howlers?
Well, I think if you just quickly flick that graphic up, Matt, that Bellegarde's over the hills and far away. Like, why is he that far away? If you look at where Chelsea are, they looked positionally poor today as well for me, but they're more compact. And Bellegarde, why is he our furthest forward player when he's essentially a left winger with defensive duties with a back four? It's not like we have the back five now where Totti can tuck him behind Aït-Nouri, and when Aït-Nouri goes off on one of his meandering runs, he got absolutely. He didn't play very well, Ryan, today, but he got absolutely no help. He was being doubled up, and it was one of the centre backs or one of the central midfielders that always seemed to be the ones helping and covering for him, when realistically, again, back to basics, it should be your left winger coming back to help on the double up. And hopefully the point is then you can then break and double up on the gap that you've caused by winning the ball back. So I think Aït-Nouri's in the wrong position. He's not had a great game. He looked a little bit laissez-faire a little bit sometimes during the game as well. When he went to take a corner in front of us, down in the Billy right, there was no sort of urgency around it, and we were losing 2-1 at the time. It was kind of, he does have that sort of language style, which tends to work for him. But yeah, it's not all on him. And I was very unimpressed with both of our quote unquote wingers today. And I think Bellegarde was much better going forward than Hwang, but he did absolutely nothing coming backwards. And I think Tom said it earlier, that the trap was set, wasn't it, in the second half, for Cole Palmer to just take a 5-7 yard step to his right, and all of a sudden Aït-Nouri was being doubled up, and Totti was next to useless today as well. Yeah,
I mean, we're going to get on to the sixth goal here for João Felix and Neto's assist in there. Chelsea have an embarrassment of riches, let's be honest with you. Anyone that can bring on Nkunku, João Felix in any squad has an advantage over majority in the league. However, João Felix does make it 6. I mean, it was already game over by this point. But Tom, I'm going to give you the honour of speaking about Felix, let's put that aside. We don't care about the goal. We've lost at this point. Where are you on the Neto side of this? Because this is divided opinion online. You've got, the Wolves, I don't know, social media mafia, the people you always see all the time making their kind of outlandish statements about it. But I want to give you the first chance on the Fancast, Tom, to talk us about Neto here. He's obviously celebrated quite enthusiastically, considering he hasn't scored himself. He was just assist making. Do you get rolled up by this stuff? Do you think, well, he's in a new team, he's got new teammates, he's got a travelling support that he's got to play up to? Where do you lie with this? And everybody at home, give me your thoughts on kind of Neto's celebrations here as well.
Is it nice to see? No, but I think fundamentally at the end of the day, we sit on these fan casts, and to us, we're so passionate. You follow it home, you follow it away, you spend a boatload of money. Like look at what Ed's done today, traveling around. To them, at the end of the day, it's a job. And if I go and join a new employer and something good happens, I'm celebrating that success because I'm now with my new employers and surrounded by my new colleagues. Probably as simple as that. In modern day football, gone are the days, very, very, apart from, you probably count them on one hand, players who genuinely will just stay and absolutely love and adore the city. So does it rile me up? I think equally, probably not. I mean, arguably we'll have players that will pick off from other teams and they'll be all pro Wolves. At the end of the day, they'll go to Chelsea. If Real Madrid came knocking for Neto, he'd be gone next week and celebrating enthusiastically against Chelsea as well. So it is what it is. I think it's probably more just down to the fact we got absolutely drugged. We're seeing one of our players. We got told by Madueke that our town/city is poo. And then we're watching one of our best players play for the other team and put 6 past us in our own backyard. So that's where my head's at, mate.
Yeah, it's funny. I was on commentary for the game and I was asked what I thought my opinions of the reception would be for Neto. And I very much said that Wolves did Neto a huge favour by letting it come out. And Hobbs, in his interview, saying how he cried before he left. He didn't really want to leave, but the offer was too good for Wolves and for Neto. PR, exactly, PR. And did Neto a favour there. Ed, is that for you now? Game over. Let's hope he pulls a hammy in his next game and doesn't make it to the next fixture at away at Stamford Bridge. Or are you a little more level-headed about these kind of things?
No, we clapped him when he warmed up, and that was enough. I literally did say, right, sod off now. You've had your clap. That's you done. I'm not going to boo you, but I'm not overly interested in any of this, to be honest. I think Tom's hit the nail on the head. For most of these people, it's a job, isn't it? It was very unusual. The affinities, players like Neves have had when they came to Wolves. They seem to fall in love with the town/city that Madueke couldn't stand being in for one night. So, and you don't have to expect them to love it as much as we do. And I think maybe now pushing 40, I'm not where I was maybe 20 years ago, thinking that everyone should love Wolves as much as I do. I think the biggest problem is the fact that he was our most impactful player last year, and he's now on the bench. So I think that's he's on the bench for a team of individuals, and I think it's annoying to see him celebrate, but also João Felix is probably his mate from the Portuguese setup, right? So it makes
there's an element of that as well, I think, which comes into play also. But it's one of those things. I think if you treat yourself like the spurned ex after every player, I mean, you could try and make a positive out of it. And the Wolves system and progression and growth as a team means if we're selling more players on that are playing for star clubs, are we doing something right? If we're constantly breaking our transfer record for sole players, I'm not saying we're going to turn into the next Southampton or anything like that, but, are we stepping in the right direction, at least from a recruitment point of view? We'll no doubt the Fancast will have a transfer deadline day special, so we'll talk you through all of the rumours and ongoing towards as the transfer window ends. Eddie, let's come to you for the full-time thoughts then. How, come the end of the game, where were you? Complete deflation? Were you ready to get the bank holiday drinks on the go? I know you obviously had a long journey home. Talk me through your full-time thoughts and any kind of heroes or villains that you want to shout out for.
Well, just briefly, Matt. Just a very speaking of villain. Just to very quickly go back to Neto. Just for me, and I think for a lot of other people listening, it was very disappointing. Just a move that had absolutely no class and no respect. You have 27,000 Wolves fans in that stadium, is it? Who took their hard-earned money to come to that game. We saw a player there who joined the club at 18, 19. He spent his entire adult life in Wolverhampton, and he must know what it means for those fans. Week in, week out, that come to support him, that get behind him, and that care about the players, and you have that relationship, and you just think for a second that would have been in his mind in that situation where, you know, he didn't even score. He got an assist when the game was already over at 5-2 to make it 6-2. And I mean, for me, it was just, I think it's probably right that he's gone to Chelsea. Chelsea have shown they're a team without class at all with Madueke's comments. And I think he's probably joined the right setup then. And he's just shown the kind of player he is. There's just no need for it, you know. You know, I'm not upset. I don't wish an injury on him, and I wish him well. But it's really disappointing for me. Because, you know, there's a huge amount of fans in that stadium that cheered for him week in, week out. And he wasn't thinking there for a second about anyone else but himself.
Yeah, fair point, bollocks to him.
Yeah, fuck that guy. I think there's an element of, because of kind of his lack of consistent game time and stuff like that Wolves stuck by Neto a lot as well, and kind of nursed him through some pretty serious injuries in his own career and kept him kind of in the loop and got into the position where he is now. You know, Kovacic with Man City and Chelsea last week, scoring and kind of, you know, I'm not a huge fan of that whole hold your hands up and not celebrating. I think that's just as disingenuous in a way. I think you just get on with it, muted celebrations and get on with it. But it's one of those. I think, you know, let's see. We've got Morgan Gibbs-White to worry about, you know, coming up. So I think that we won't be too long before that happens. But what I did realise, and Ed does the celebration, Tom does the celebration, I didn't realise he did that. Does he do that against everybody? I don't know. I thought that was just a thing exclusively.
He's not very bright, mate. He's not very bright. So
he doesn't know who he's playing against, maybe. So full-time thoughts then. Tom, give us your full-time thoughts. How did you feel come the end of the game? Where were you? How deflated were you?
Well, I think once the game had finished, I was actually back on my sofa. What did I think? You know what? I was in utter shock. Utter shock. I was thinking, what the heck have I just witnessed? I think that was the poorest half of tactically inept football I had seen in a long, long time. And look, we don't want to get on a bandwagon where we say Gary O'Neill's terrible. But if I go to work and I perform that poorly, then I have to go in the next day to training or at work, and you've got to turn things around, and you've got to turn things around quick. We don't want to get down the rabbit hole of 5 at the back, 4 at the back, but fundamentally, your manager, you've got the players to pick from. Yes, every manager would like more players, but equally, my argument would be, well, Dawson was there, Totti Gomez was there, so really, can Mascara not learn to play the Kilman way, or can we not slot someone in and just still play the same system and keep it nice and tight at the back? I was just completely confused, completely shell-shocked. I thought we literally were like a lamb to the slaughter. I think we made Chelsea, and all the pundits will be saying Chelsea this, Chelsea that. No, Chelsea have got some really good, fast attacking players who can be clinical. But I could have scored for Chelsea up front today. That's how open it felt like it was. So let alone these people. So arguably, what did I think? I was confused. I was shell-shocked. I was angry. I think we need to go back and really, really look at, if we're going to go forward at the back, we cannot have Aït-Nouri. That graphic that we showed, their player, their average position looks about 10 yards ahead of Aït-Nouri, which then means his average position, and nobody's marking Madueke. And what happens? He scored a hat-trick and probably had 2 or 3 shots. Ed said that Sarr saved on goal as well. It's confusing. I don't understand as well when the substitution happened and we take Aït-Nouri off and we strip him off, and all of a sudden we've got 4 centre-backs at the back. Like all of a sudden that's going to solve the problem. Maybe go 5 at the back and leave Aït-Nouri to meander and try and create something up front. Now we've got 4 centre-halves. Will it make it a little bit more solid? Well, maybe, possibly. But at this point, what was it, 5-2 or 4-5-2? You're thinking, what is going on? So a lot of questions, a lot of confusion, a lot of anger, repeating myself, but it has to get better. But I cannot think of a time. I think it was 2007, the last time we conceded 6 goals at home, or lost by 6 goals at home. So that is a long time. So there's a lot of questions to be answered, and he needs to decide what's he doing. And if he's going to go forward at the back, we cannot have Aït-Nouri meandering forward. Otherwise, this is going to be one hell of a long season.
Yeah. Again, like I did in the first half, I want to ask the public this, and I want your numerical values in the comments. And then for those listening along in podcast form, I want you to tweet along to it as well. But Ed, looking at where Gary O'Neill fits into this for the blame, in his comments, he said it was a tough afternoon for the fans and he apologises for his part in it. We've played Chelsea and Arsenal, and when you fall short the guarantees to the standards that we want, we will get punished or you get punished. Give me a percentage, though, Ed, of where you feel that Gary O'Neill lies here out of 0 to 100%. Where does he take the blame here? And everyone at home, let me know as well also where you think as a percentage Gary O'Neill takes the blame.
I think it's a good 40-50%. I think the players take a huge chunk of it as well. And of course, we listened to the podcast last time out where people had the Fosun out type vibe, but he takes a lot of it because I think as Tom's just talked about the substitutions, we were scrambling. That's like your first time playing Football Manager and you don't quite know what to do. It's like just throwing another defender, throwing someone else that might shore it up. It didn't seem like there was a plan. When Aït-Nouri went off, everyone around us, we were talking, well, that's Totti at left back, or that's hopefully should make us more defensively sound on the left. But at that point, we were 2 goals down. We need to be going forward. We needed to change it. We needed to go to maybe 3 at the back and let Aït-Nouri, have free reign and do what he wants. I think, it's a good 30, 40, up to 50%, I think he was definitely outmaneuvered after half-time. At half-time, I think Maresca made the changes. He can't know exactly what changes are going to happen, but the changes were happened, and I think he didn't counterpunch. I think he stood there like Homer, taking the punches, hoping that we wouldn't fall down. But unfortunately, what took 2 or 3 minutes before we did.
Yeah, first knockdown for sure, at least. Eddie, what about you from a Gary O'Neill point of view? How much of the blame lies with him?
Well, yeah, I mean, certainly a significant margin. I'd be with Ed there at saying 50%. I mean, obviously the players can only exact that game plan that they've been given, and if Aït-Nouri was told to get forward, if we saw in that graphic, by the way, that Hwang seemed to be hanging back, was he told to be hanging back? We saw in that graphic that Strand Larsen seemed to be more on the left side than going down the middle as well. Again, was that something he was told to do? So it's we don't know what the players were told to do exactly, do we? But certainly, whatever the game plan was, it was a disaster today. It's really important to just mention though that this is game 2 of the season. Gary O'Neill said it in his own little apology there, which was good to see him apologise. And I will also mention that at the end of the game, he did come out onto the pitch. He went to South Bank and he apologised, and he pointed at himself and as if to say he accepted that he was to blame and that he had a large share of the blame for today. But it is only game week 2, and we have played Arsenal and Chelsea, albeit a Chelsea that have been at 6s and 7s in the past few months, but have got £1 billion team. So it's a long season. We've got a long way to go. We've got to stay positive. We should still be behind Gary O'Neill, and also you could argue that Gary O'Neill in some ways done a masterclass by getting us battered 6-2, because it said to Fosun, here, look, we've got this. We've got 5 days left of this transfer window, and we've got this money to spend. You can see there are problems here. You can see what Chelsea have done to us, and we need to bring players in. And we're not going into that window with 3 points. We're going in the 19th position in what could easily be 20th if it wasn't for Everton getting battered even worse than we have over 2 games. So we're saying to Fosun that we need reinforcements.
It does feel like we've been here before, doesn't it? Albeit not game week 2. But so, Tom, I'll flip the question on its head then. How much of this is Gary O'Neill being hamstrung by the tools at his disposal then? And actually he's working with what he's got. Or you could then argue, well, he knows that 5 at the back works. So let's go with something that we know works until we get reinforcements in. What say you?
Correct. Is his job easy? No, I think we have to reflect back to the time when he started, and we were almost thinking doomed to failure, Man United away, and completely unexpected. So he did above and beyond last season. And do I think he's a fantastic manager? I really, really do. Do I back him 100%? But as a manager, you've got to learn quick. You can only do what you know with the players that you've got. So you have to build around that system time and time again. If you don't think the players are good enough, shut up shop. It's so obvious. It doesn't take a brain surgeon to figure that out. You've got to keep it compact and secure. That's why it's not pretty to watch. That's why those teams kill the game. He obviously thought that we've got enough quality, or the players are good enough on that pitch to play today anyway, expansive football. We weren't that open against Arsenal, which again is a little bit more surprising itself. So maybe he thought Chelsea were there for the kill, but it just seems very, very, very strange to me. So, I mean, where do you come back? You know, where do you come back from watching a performance like that? So, I think we have to back Gary O'Neill. I think we have to trust in him. Is he hamstrung by the owners? 100%. Is it an easy job? No, not at all. But I think he made a tough job virtually impossible today, because I think you'd have got peppered by Sheffield United last season playing as that open as well. I genuinely do. Today, I don't think you get promoted from the Championship playing like that. It was crazy than Bielsa football. It's something that I've never ever seen. So maybe he wants to play like that, which is lovely. If you want to go and play like Barcelona and play this, you know, meandering players going forward. But at the end of the day, there's your players. You go by it. And as Ed said with the substitutions as well, it just seemed baffling. And all of a sudden we've got a different, you know, there's 3 different players at the front of the pitch who haven't played together, who can't kind of interchange and understand where players are going. And if we, going off topic, but then if we flag up Hwang's performance throughout the game today, arguably has to be one of the worst performances I've seen from a player in a Wolves top. I'm not Hwang's biggest fan, but he's a nice cold finisher. But that was absolutely diabolical too.
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to mention this is kind of what people will be doing tomorrow morning in their Teams calls, but any other business. Are there any kind of other villains that you want to talk about? Eddie, I'll come to you. Any other business, any other kind of villains from that performance that you want to highlight, or positives, you know, to keep us from going to bed too sad?
Well, it was a good. One of the comments you flashed up there was really interesting. That mentioned Gary O'Neill's interview that said he needs to get more out of the group, and he admitted that responsibility, which I agree with. Yeah, from Dave Harris. But yeah, no, I'm with you 100%, Tom. Hwang was not up for it. He's not just invisible today. You know, we know he wants to play. He's more comfortable playing down the middle. You know, he doesn't want to be out wide. But his first touch wasn't there. His passing wasn't there. We can see on the heat map his positioning was obviously where was he? Where he was all over the place. So yeah, I mean, we've got. I know we'll talk about Burnley briefly, but we've got a really good opportunity to try some players out in these positions, and then go into Forest with a personnel change. And there has to be a personnel change after what we saw today.
Mm-hmm. Ed, last kind of comment on the game itself before we turn to Burnley and the transfer window. Any standout performances, good, bad, or ugly, that you want to mention? You know, we haven't really given Jose Sarr much airtime this afternoon. He kind of felt like he already had one eye on a prize elsewhere. I'm not sure. You would kind of think with the whole Ramsdale news flying around that, you know, that might be a different story. But, you know, give us your thought process on that before we wrap up the game.
Yeah, so just a quick positive. Strand Larsen and Cunha, I think if they can connect even better than what they were doing today, I think that they have a real chance of being a good partnership. Really like them. But I find Sarr difficult to pinpoint. I like him. I think he's good. I have no qualms with the Ramsdale Wolves Albion thing. It doesn't bother me in the slightest. Maybe my dad being an Albion fan probably helps with that. But I don't really have any much truck with that. But I think he's maybe a more consistent goalkeeper than Sarr, but maybe doesn't have as many worldies in him that Sarr does. I think it's a bit of a like for like negative, positive change if we were to bring Ramsdale in for Sarr. But yeah, I don't know. It felt like, you know, you're at school and you just put a kid in goal and everyone has a shot at him. That's what it felt like today. Like the bloke had no one in front of him. So maybe he could have done better with some of them. You know, he's kicking is always a bit dodgy. I mean, he got one out of the stand. That was fun. in the first half when we all thought Chelsea were there for the taking. But I think it's difficult to really give an actual opinion on his performance today when he had Mosquera and 3 ghosts in front of him, is what it looked like today.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's a few comments, and thank you everybody for getting in touch on the live chat, talking about the kind of the roles of different players. Gary O'Neill responsible for the results end of. They had all the pre-season to prepare. Another one from Stillwith, they had all pre-season to evaluate the back line anyway. Needing a new centre-back will give Santi a run in the team. And that brings us on to kind of the final kind of slide I want to talk about. Gary O'Neill mentions it's an important week for us coming up. Everyone knows the financial restrictions we have, but we've raised some good funds and we need some help. I think the frustration as a fan is, and it very much is the okie dokie with financial restrictions. 1 minute we have them, 1 minute we don't. 1 minute we've got loads of money in the bank, 1 minute we don't because we've got to pay wages as well as transfer fees. And it's all very cloak and dagger, and it feels like it's been a revolving window of the same kind of narrative every January and every July going into the transfer window, where we need to shore up. We spend money in January to help us secure our position, and it goes back to square one again. It must be very frustrating for everyone, including Gary O'Neill and including the team that need help. Absolutely need help. Wolves Fancast will be doing, I'm sure, a transfer deadline day special. So make sure you set your clocks for that, and we'll give you all of the info as much as we can. A word on Burnley then from all three of you. Eddie, we'll start with you. Got to be changes. Fringe players will come in. You've got to think your likes of Bueno, Tommy Doyle, etc. Will make starts and try and impress. But you mentioned that you think we should stick with that formation. Is there anyone then you're excited to see factor into that formation? Anyone you think that would actually work a bit better?
Well, I mean, it'd be great to see. Why not? Why can't we see a Dawson and Santi Bueno pairing at centre back? It would be good to see Totti Gomez at left back, because when he shifted over there today, I thought actually looked better in that position he did at centre back. We're obviously happy to see more of Tommy Doyle, although he had a very brief cameo today. He was a quality player for us last season. Again, Boubacar Traore, another player it'd be great to see, who was again hasn't had any time, but it'd be great to see him on. We'll give Rodrigo Gomez will start. Sarabia will start. No one's mentioned Guedes. What's happening with Guedes? He was on the bench today. He was warming up at half time. He's not had any minutes today. He's not. I mean, he looks like a goner, doesn't he? Same thing with Pedence. But then if he's gonna play, if we're not gonna sell him, if we're not gonna move it on, then we've got to give him a chance. We've got to give him. Can he be reborn? Can he be a phoenix and rise from the ashes and start again for us? I don't know. But there's a lot of players anyway that have an opportunity to go in and do something and stake a claim to go back to Forest and be in Gary O'Neill's plans. And I'm sure a lot of those players will hopefully take that opportunity.
Yeah, Tom, quick word from you on players like Guedes. Podence, an offer from Olympiacos that's in. Surprisingly, he even played any game time at risk of injury. But do you think some of those fringe players should start against Burnley?
I think if it was me, what I would do would be go full strength, whatever Gary O'Neill feels like full strength is, because it's so easy to get into a losing pattern. Yes, we played Arsenal. Yes, we played Chelsea, even though they're a bit of a clown of a club. But I think go full strength, whatever he sees that as. And then I think you can bring the fringe players on at 60, 70 minutes, hopefully, if we're 2 goals to the good and in a comfortable position. And I would do that because I think we need to breed kind of the solidarity, confidence, understanding, go against players that we should be, say, a lot better than, we should be a good distance better than, so we can understand where they want to be, how they can play, get some nice free-flowing football, understand positionally where players are going to be, where players are going to move, where left backs need to be. And get some structure, just get some solidarity, get some structure back, get a good win, and then, of course, bring on the fringe players. I think if you start almost chopping and changing, and we've got 5 or 6, even maybe whatever he thinks of the best, bringing on Eddie said Dawson and Santi, maybe even try that if he thinks that could be something that does work. I think just to kind of throwing 5 or 6, all of a sudden we just got so many changes, and it comes around to the next Premier League game. And the biggest question is, right, we'll go 4 at the back again. Well, we got absolutely destroyed with it before. Teams have analysed that. They understand where our weaknesses are. It's so obvious. Let's do that again. No, let's show them that we can defend. Let's show them that we understand positionally where we need to be, and that kind of hide any weaknesses that we've got within our setup. Because again, on the positive, we are still good and looked decent at times, quite decent at going forward. So let's get that structure, get some goals, get the win, and then let's have a look at them. He's had all the pre-season to look at these fringe players. Then we've got to stop being so nicey. What they trains with them every single day. Pre-season, this is professional football. This is your job. Go in, figure out what's best. When you understand that, and then we can start tinkering about and giving players opportunities and all that sort. I've got training to show them that he's good enough to start, because that, in his opinion, is the strongest and best way for us to start this game, and it was terrible.
Wow, you sound like Molly May. No wonder Tommy Fury left. So Ed, just to wrap this up, Pedro Lima, would you like him to get some game time in against Burnley, do you think?
Yeah, he was the only player that I'd want to bring in. I was with Tom 100% there. I think we should go with whatever Gary O'Neill thinks is basically our core, and maybe change a few on the fringes. Maybe Chiquinho and Lima, do a new right wing, maybe, and that's about it. I wouldn't change very much, because I think we need to get on. We need to get back on the winning trail some way, shape or form. I don't know how many more times can we be chop and change this team when we know we all say that the squad's stronger, but the first team isn't. Well, let's just keep playing that first team. Bloody play them until they drop if we have to. We need to get something out of it, because today was not good enough. The very old fashioned part of me wants to say, you messed up today, you go out and fix it. You go and fix it on Tuesday or Wednesday. Sorry.
Well said.
Well said. Burnley.
Well, therein lies the question.
Where are we at then?
Well, the reaction show for that will be a bit spicier. We'd start to put the chip pan oil in the gone only. Well, the Fag God's got enough pelters for that last time, so we'll hold off for that until the very last moment. But listen, want to thank our sponsors, and want to thank and do a bit of plugging for the Fancast T-Mill shop and the FC Quiz.app. Want to also thank our support from the Sports Social Podcast Network. I want to thank you, gents, for being along with me for the ride this evening. It's been great to digest what has happened this afternoon, and we look forward to the Burnley game to right some of the wrongs. But more importantly, we couldn't do any of this without you at home. Thanks very much for your comments, being along with us for the ride. I hope anybody that listens to this in the cold light of day is listening to it with a slightly calmer ear as well. It will all be okay, I promise you. Matt wouldn't lie to you. But thank you, Eddie, Ed, and Tom, for your time this evening. Hope everybody has a great rest of the bank holiday weekend, whatever it is that you get up to. Stay safe, check in on your pals, and we look forward to the next one.
Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?